Hello all out there in YouTube, and welcome to a little Ramble review. As you can see, I have two guests here. I thought I should have some eye candy for this, and that's why Jack is here. This is my friend Emily, fellow dog wrangler and a good friend of mine. So I decided to get her involved in this Ramble review because I figured she'd like the movie. So yeah, say hello.
Hello. We just watched the new Prey movie.
Yep, Prey, the new Predator movie. So we might as well get started. So what are your thoughts on the other Predator movies, just to get started?
The first two were great.
Okay.
After that, they went downhill pretty sharply.
Well, I mean, Predators wasn't that bad. The one where they're up on the planet with what was it, Adrian Brody? Anyway, so I like the first Predator. I like the second Predator. I think they're both good.
Yeah.
I did not see the new one, The Predator, because I had no desire to see that. I'm one of those guys that if I don't want to see something, I don't see it.
Don't bother.
I'm going to give you guys a heads up here. If you hear panting in the background, it's because we're watching some dogs right now, like this guy. And the eye candy has left us, but he might return later. So anyway, so this new Predator movie called Prey, this was the first Predator movie released by Fox once it was taken over by the Disney Empire, you know, that evil corporation. And it takes place back in the 1700s in Native American tribes, and we're following a Comanche woman, and, you know, basic premise that we know from every Predator movie. A predator comes down and starts tearing shit apart. Yep, starts hunting, as predators often do. And we're following this young Comanche woman. What was the character's name? I
don't remember, actually.
Yeah, we just watched
girls.
this. Yeah.
Teenage girls.
Teenage girls.
The Wrath of the Teenage Girl. They could have named it that.
You could have named it that, yeah. You'll have to forgive us. We just finished watching the movie and we're doing this right now. So, you have this young Comanche woman who wants to be a hunter, and, you know, back in that time period, women were seen as the gatherers, not as the hunters, so going against the norm. And she's trying to prove herself to be a hunter, and as she's trying to prove herself to be a hunter, a predator lands, and, you know, we get all the predator goodness that we want. So what'd you think of Prey?
I really liked it. I
Okay.
loved the new weapons. Well, I guess they would be the old weapons.
Yeah, because this is technically a prequel. I mean, it doesn't have any connection to the Predator that we all know and love with Arnold Schwarzenegger, but it does have new weapons, or old weapons, a more primitive Predator, which I enjoyed. Yeah, I like the fact that, you know, because Predators have more advanced technology than we do, of course. We've seen that in every Predator movie, and every Predator movie, the technology seems to advance. But since this takes place so long ago, and the Predator is essentially going after a primitive tribe, we have more primitive weapons. So it's like a primitive Predator versus primitive people. So, yeah. But go on.
They still were amazing weapons.
The weapons did kind of steal the whole show in regards to the Predator. What made the first Predator so great was the simplicity of it. You know, it's like, you know, you have these group of mercenaries or something, they're going in to rescue some hostages, but of course you find out that that was all bullshit. All bullshit, all of it. Terrible Arnold impersonation. But, you know, they're shown to be the best of the best, and then it's an action movie that becomes a slasher movie, essentially. Because, you know, you have the Predator who starts picking off all these people one by one. And what made it so good was the simplicity of it. And then why the second one worked was because I love Predator 2. It's one of my favorite sequels. I think it gets a bum rap because a lot of people seem to dislike it. But it seems to be getting a little more love nowadays. But Predator 2 did what a sequel should do. It expanded on the story. You know, it's like we learned more about the Predator. We got the same story that we know and love, only this time instead of in the jungle, the Predator's in a city. But we learned more about the Predator, but it was, you know, relatively the same story. And then when the sequels came out, they got a little more complicated and a little more complicated. And this took it back to basics. It simplified the Predator story again.
It was just hunting.
Just hunting.
It was just hunting over and over again.
And it wasn't
great action scenes.
The action scenes were good, but it took a while to get to the action scenes.
A lot of character building.
This was one of the quieter Predator movies that I've seen, you know, because like the first Predator, it started off with that big action scene and then got quieter as, you know, the Predator started, going through all the characters.
Well, it fit with the whole Native American
Yeah,
vibe.
yeah, because Native Americans were...
Quiet times back in the 1700s.
As you mentioned, as you mentioned, Native Americans, while we were watching it, you mentioned that, Native Americans were very quiet and you had to be a stealthy hunter. So, because this wasn't like, it was very different from the other Predator movies, because, in the other Predator movies, it was like Predator versus Soldier, or Predator versus Cop, or Predator versus, like, in the new one, they collected different...
Very well-trained
people, yeah.
Killers, yeah.
Whereas, instead of going after soldiers, or, like, not to say that Comanches weren't well-trained, but they were trained in survival, and they hunted for survival, not so much sport. So it wasn't, they were fighting warriors, but a different kind of warrior. So it was like hunter versus hunter, whereas you have one hunter that hunts for sport and one hunter that hunts for survival. And you put these dynamics together, and it worked very well together.
It really did.
Yeah. Because you were a big fan of the main character, even though we can't remember her name.
Yeah, she was great.
She kicked a lot of ass.
I didn't say her name that much.
Well,
but yes.
Because, like I said, it was a much quieter Predator. I mean, when the action gets going, it gets going. But before that, you have all these beautiful shots, the beautiful scene. The cinematography was very well done. The music was very different from most other Predator movies, because most other Predator movies had very aggressive music, as you would expect.
This matched with the vibe.
Because it was, like I said, it's a quieter Predator movie. It's a smaller story, and I think it was all the better for that, for taking it and making it a smaller story and making it a quieter story. Like I said, because the other Predator movies, you have the action scenes, and then it goes to quieter scenes where it becomes sort of a slasher movie. Because a lot of action movies nowadays, it's a build-up to bigger and bigger action scenes, like, all the Marvel movies and stuff like that, which everybody wants, but a lot of the classic action movies from the 80s, it was, instead of getting bigger and bigger and bigger, it would get smaller and smaller and smaller. Like, from the original Predator, you start with this army of guys and this huge action-packed scenes with explosions and stuff like that. Hi there, Jack. There's dogs playing around us, I apologize. But then it gets smaller, and as we whittle down everybody, then the end, instead of a big action scene, it's Arnold versus the Predator.
It's just two people left, yeah.
Same thing with, Die Hard, which many people consider to be the greatest action movie of all time. It would start off with all these different explosions, and then the end, it's just a bloody, beaten up John McClane, trying to save his wife from Hans Gruber. But you look at this one, it's like, it kind of did a different thing. It's like, it started off slow, then got, action-packed, but then got slow again.
It's a pretty high body count.
There is a high body count. We'll try not to spoil stuff here, but there's a decent body count. I liked how this Predator, he started off simple. Like, it was like they didn't know about humans quite yet, and he was going after animals and stuff like that. Yeah,
I don't think that his purpose was to hunt humans specifically. Yeah. Like in the other Predator movies, exactly. He came here to hunt people, which were the, Yeah,
but in this one, it started off with him hunting animals. So I'm wondering if the Predators didn't know about humans at this time.
That's how it felt like.
Yeah,
they
exactly.
kind of discovered each other.
Yeah, well, it was because it was again a primitive predator. Because one of the things that was different was, in most Predator movies you have that iconic Predator mask. In this one, it was like a skull. Because I just love how they made everything more primitive instead of more advanced. And the Predator still had technology, but it was very different technology from what we know from Predators. And I don't know if that would, maybe it's like a different Predator tribe, or is it just the same lineage of Predators, just a more primitive version of that?
It felt like just a more primitive version of that.
Yeah, I know, but
they probably learned every time they came here, which was whatever.
Yeah, because every time they come here,
often.
Every time they come here, one of them dies. It's like, you think they'd stop coming here?
They like a challenge.
They do like a challenge. No, that's what I, because the Predator's such an interesting character, one of the things I found fascinating about this was, okay, so we see the young Comanche girl, learning to hunt and training herself to hunt and stuff like that. And then we would cut to the Predator. Because, I mean, like, this is like the seventh Predator? The seventh Predator movie. You people need to see what we were watching as we were watching the movie. It had all this carnage going on screen, and then we had two blonde dogs playing with toys down here.
Yeah, some golden love on the side.
Golden love on the side as there's absolute carnage happening on the screen. Anyway, where it was, you saw the Comanche girl training, and then you saw the Predator getting used to hunting
all of our animals.
Exactly,
all of our different, and progressively challenging itself on bigger and bigger animals.
Because it started with small animals, then medium, and then bigger animals, and then the intelligent animals.
That's why I'm not sure it came here to hunt us specifically.
I don't think it did.
I don't think it did.
No, it did.
So this might be sort of a maybe the next one will be.
They'll learn it. Maybe the next one will be easier.
Well, like a sequel to this.
Well,
maybe they'll progress from here.
What they've done by doing this, like having Predators versus Comanches, having it happen back in the day instead of modern times, they've now created a perfect way to make sequels for this. Instead of just doing, okay, we're going to do the Predators again, and by doing this, they've created a very kind of a brilliant way to keep the series going by just having the Predator in different time periods. Like, picture it, okay, we have the Comanches, and then you mentioned, having the Predators in the Old West, like Predators versus Cowboys.
I like the Aliens versus Cowboys.
Yeah.
I think that movie holds water every time I see it. I think it's a good movie.
I haven't seen it in a long time, but I remembered enjoying it when I saw it.
Right.
But that's essentially the thing,
Right.
Aliens versus Cowboys, or Cowboys versus Aliens, whatever that was called. Just do that with the Predator.
Right.
Have a Predator in, like, World War II.
Right, a progression on our technology and a progression on its technology.
Predator's technology.
Yeah.
That would be an interesting way to take it. And, like, picture this, like, for a World War II Predator movie. You have, like, because Europe at that time was so decimated, you could have soldiers in an abandoned town that's been completely decimated up against, like, some German forces. But then they find a bigger enemy, and it forces the American soldiers and the German soldiers to work together to try to get this Predator. They created a way to continue the series in just, like, I think, a very intelligent way by just having the Predator in different time periods. And you could argue that that's a gimmick, but every Predator sequel has been a gimmick ever since the first one. It's like, hey, it's a Predator, but now it's in the city. Hey, it's the Predator, but now it's Predators. Hey, it's Predator, but now it's facing these aliens, So it's like, you might as well embrace the gimmick and continue with this. So, yeah.
But I really enjoyed it.
You liked it?
I really did.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought it was a good movie. I'd watch it again, and it was a good balance of action and character building, and
there was a lot of character building.
Yeah.
I'd say some of the best character building since the second one. I'm sorry, because I love Predator 2. I would put this alongside Predator 2. It's definitely one of those movies where I can see people, this being their second favorite after the first one.
There were so many taglines and iconic scenes that we're always going to love the first one.
Oh, of course. Well, see, here's the thing, because you would always...
It was just big and flashy, and it was catchy.
Well, it was one of those lightning in a bottle movies. Everybody's saying, every time a Predator sequel comes out, anytime a sequel comes out or anything, it's not going to be as good as the original. It's like, of course it's not going to be as good as the original. That's why it's the original. The reason these movies are being made is to cash in on that one because it was so good. The Predator was like a lightning in a bottle movie. You got the right people together at the right time to make this movie.
I might argue that this new movie, Prey, was as good as the original. Different.
Different.
In a different way.
Yeah.
But just the way it's all laid out, and the acting, and
it's just like
how it all flowed.
The story was very well done. I mean,
really well.
The character development was very good. The final, every Predator movie has a final battle, and this final battle was excellent. It's just that the thing is, it's like the Predator, like the original Predator is iconic, but that's because it was the first one. You're always going to have, and nothing is going to ever be able to live up to being iconic.
That's the basic, yeah.
So, this one, it's always going to be in the shadow of the first one, but for a movie that is in the shadow of the first one.
For being, the 7th in a series?
Seventh in a series, released to Hulu.
Yeah, and never on the big screen.
That,
I would have gone to see this at the movies.
I would have seen this in the theaters too, definitely. I'm glad we saw it here because we got to be surrounded by golden retrievers. So yeah, you would recommend people see this?
Absolutely.
Would you recommend that? Would you think it's worth getting Hulu for? Because I don't have Hulu. That's one of the reasons I watched it with her. I'm a mooch.
Oh, even if you just get the 7-day trial and
then watch it,
absolutely, yeah.
I hope
it's a great movie.
I hope this gets like some
Everybody knows somebody with Hulu.
Yeah. I hope this gets some kind of Blu-ray release because I'd love to see the behind-the-scenes stuff.
At some point, probably.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so we both agree it's worth watching. If you have a friend who has Hulu, get it. If not, do the free trial and watch it. Very good.
It's worth it.
Worth it. So, I hope you enjoyed this special edition of Ramble Reviews, where I had a friend involved. Let me know if you like this. Let me know if you want me to get more friends involved to bounce off of. Let me know how Emily did. This is her first time doing one of these, and I think she did all right. I think Jack did terribly because he abandoned us. But, well, anyway, thank you so much for watching. Thank you, again, as always, thank you for all the continued support on this channel. And now for my goofy outro, this is the Maniac here to remind you that the Grindhouse will never die.